Hello everybody, welcome back to another Conversations with Projektor. Today we start with, do you need music theory for Psytrance? Before I go, you can contribute topics for this series on my Discord server.
When you're writing ARPs, do you set a scale and then semi-randomly place notes? When it comes to like note placement and such, when I'm writing ARPs, stuff like this, generally speaking, I have some kind of pattern in mind. So what I often start out with is an idea for what the main pattern is doing, right? Which is the pattern over here. And then I have like the secondary pattern, which is the support thing. So this duplicates over to all of the other ones and fills it up exactly the same way. So that is kind of like the basis. And then when it comes to the actual notes, there's a lot of tweaking and experimenting to actually get the ARP to do what I want it to do. Like this one over here. It took me a while to get the top melody to this part here, but the rhythm basically stayed the same throughout the whole thing, throughout the whole writing process. When it comes to how I place the notes, it's just purely by ear, like what does sound good, what gets me the energy that I want to get from the ARP, what gets me the excitement that I want to get from it. I never really use any random generation when I'm making this. It's always just me writing things in, but I am essentially just randomly experimenting until I land something good. So it is kind of random, but it's not that I use something to generate that randomness for me. That could be an interesting approach. Sometimes though, I do have like, sometimes I do that because I sometimes use Stepic for my ARPs, in which case I can randomize the note values. Right? Stepic is a very powerful tool for this kind of stuff. If you're ever out of creative energy and you need to write an ARP, then Stepic is a way to do it. Because within Stepic, you can just randomize based on the exact key that you want. So if you're writing in Frisian, G sharp, like we are in this case, I could just generate ARPs like this until I find a pattern that is actually what I'm after. And then I might still tweak it. I might still make some changes, stuff like that. At that point, yeah, you're using essentially the randomness that is built in here. So yeah, sometimes it depends, I guess, kind of the energy that I have. If I have something in mind, then I will write it. And even then, I might not get to a point where I want to be immediately. Like, it takes a lot of rewrites. It takes a lot of time for me to actually get the melody. The reason for that is I don't really actually like know any music theory. I do everything in terms of the musical idea. I do everything by ear and just through the years of training. That is one of the reasons why I tend to write in very few keys and always in Frisian mode. So that I always have my past experience to kind of build on from there. And it also, over the years, it just sounds good for this kind of music. And writing anything else is immediately going to sound a little bit off for me. So I'm kind of restricting myself, I guess, into the way that I'm writing, in that I'm always in one of a few very specific keys. And then always in the same scale for every key that I use, right? The Frisian mode, whatever, or Frisian scale. I don't know what the right term for it is. I believe Frisian and Frisian dominant are two different things. But even then, that doesn't really tell me anything, because all I know when actually trying to lay out a scale like that is if you want to lay out the Frisian, you start at A and you just go up all of the notes until you're back at A again, and then you take the second note and you move that one down. So that the second note is actually on the sharp here. And then you just move it to whatever key you need. This is not something that I use anymore. Like, I used to just do this, and then from here I could check whether the notes were in scale or not, the ones that I was writing. Nowadays I have written so many melodies that I essentially know the pattern by heart, and I can place the notes just based on the pattern of which notes there are. It doesn't mean that I would be able to name out all of the notes that are, for example, in G sharp Frisian. But it does mean that whenever I'm in that writing flow, that I can write a melody that is basically always in key. And even then, sometimes I just make mistakes, and I sometimes go back to check if something is sounding off. But then I check it with the trick that I just showed before, just by transposing the root note to the normal A here, and then seeing if it fits with the pattern that I know. Frisian dominant has a flattened 7 note. Okay, yeah, that doesn't that doesn't really tell me anything, because as I said, I don't know any music theory, and I don't really care about learning music theory. At some points, I always thought like it would be nice through music theory because you don't know what you don't know. But nowadays, I feel like the music that I'm trying to write, I'm almost always capable of writing that music. So it's not really that I feel limited by the fact that I don't know anything in regards to music theory. I just write on feel, and most of the time I'm able to just get out whatever I want from that approach. It sounds good, and that's what matters. Exactly, yeah. The only thing that can be a problem with that philosophy, like as long as it sounds good, that is all that matters, is that it may take you longer than necessary to get to a point where it sounds good. Like if you know music theory and you have like a deep understanding of which notes together sound good and which patterns together sound good and which rhythms together sound good, then you're more likely to initially write an idea that is just going to work with that part of the track. Whereas if you're just messing around, it may take you a lot longer to actually get there. The genre doesn't have a lot of chord changes, so the theory isn't as relevant as in some other genres. True, yeah, at the end of the day, you're just basically writing everything in the root note, or a lot of the things in the root note. There are some things that I do where it's instead of like doing actual chord changes, it's just playing a melody. And for that, obviously, you need to know which notes go well with each other. But even there, with the limited amount of possibilities that you have, you're going to get something that is going to sound at least decent fairly quickly. Especially after some years of experience like I have. I was wrong, by the way. Frisian dominant has a raised third compared to the Frisian. It can be a bit more Eastern, but also slightly more tension in a good way. Okay. That is interesting to maybe look at one day. I've also heard things about Hungarian keys and such. As I said, I know basically nothing about that stuff. And at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy. The reason why it's an issue is you're always happy with your current workflow when you don't realize that the things that you're missing could make your music even better, right? In terms of information, in terms of knowledge. So maybe music production or music theory is the thing that I should maybe look into more. But I've never played an instrument like this thing over here. I've said it many times before. It's basically just there as a showpiece for the videos so that it looks a little bit more professional. And it doesn't really have any other purpose. Like I don't know how to play it. So I don't really have a proper way of training it other than maybe placing it in MIDI, which is not, when it comes to music theory and studying that way, it's not the most exciting method to do things. Right, learning an instrument is much more exciting, I guess, than actually learning music theory just by placing down MIDI notes. Music theory is a nice way to explain why things sound good, etc., rather than a set of rules to follow. Yeah, that's true. At the end of the day, the music needs to come from your, I guess, experience writing, right? At the end of the day, at some point, you've realized in your career which notes work well with which and which patterns work well. You've built up your own kind of muscle memory for proper writing. That being said, I do think stuff like this can be accelerated by learning music theory. And B, you can get a new perspective because, as I said before, I've heard about Hungarian and Frisian dominance, but I've never actually written with any of those. At the end of the day, I have no experience with how those keys are supposed to sound and how I can make good music with those. So even if I start to try, it's most likely that I'll say like, hey, this is sounding off to me because I'm so used to Frisian because I write everything in that. You're kind of missing out on the things that you don't know, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. All chords are extracted from scales or notes, so it's worth learning the basic formulas. Yeah, I can see that. Of how that works. Sorry, yeah, I can see that. I can see that being useful to know. Most DAWs allow you to restrict to a particular scale, so music theory becomes less important. It doesn't really work that way. It's not just about learning the notes, also the way that they relate to each other and the way that they resolve into each other. Because that's where the real storytelling is, right? The way that you go from one note to the other. Once again, we don't really do chord changes inside of Psytrance. Like, that's not a common thing. Although I've done a few tracks that actually have some. I guess the main reason why I want to know it more is because I hope that some information like that will get me better at making ARPs and stuff like that. At least you can apply the same kind of theory, not to the chords of a whole track, but I guess to the notes of an ARP like this. But again, I don't know enough about music theory to actually say if that's true or not. Like if that kind of theory actually applies.
Do I use frequency response correction?
Do you use any frequency response calibration on high pass or monitors? Does the HP stand for high pass there in that question? The answer to that question is no. I don't use anything like room correction or a way that I'm altering the frequencies that my monitors output. And that is purely because at the moment I'm in a temporary setup. So I'm going to need to redo everything like that in the new apartment where I'm going to move to in September. Oh, headphones. Yeah, sorry. So right now I'm like in a temporary setup, so it doesn't really make sense for me to, or it could make sense for me to adapt to that setup, but I want to do it properly anyway. So something like SonarWorks for the monitors or the headphones, both I guess, is something that I really want to look into when I'm settling in the other apartment, which I'm trying to get for a couple of years at least, so that I can stay there for longer. Part of the reason is because this apartment is pretty shitty. It's not the greatest place to be, but I guess one of those frequency response calibration things is really something that you need to invest a little bit of time in to set up properly. Otherwise, it can do more harm than good. So for that reason, I haven't had the time and the willingness to do it here yet, because I know that here it's not permanent. I'm staying here until September and then I'm back to the old place.
My collaborations with Das Glitch.
Also Des and Projektor collab vid. There's multiple collaboration vids that we've done. There's the one where I sent him a Psytrance beat and he put his synths on it. But there's also on his channel, this is an older video, an interview or like a podcast kind of thing that we did. I guess it's called a podcast. It's long enough for it to be called a podcast. I don't even know how long that was, because that was a long time ago. But as you can see, I still had hair, so this is very old footage. And then there's this thing over here, which is more recent. This is back when my camera was terrible, when I was forced to use the webcam temporarily. But basically, I sent a beat to Psyger, Glitch, and Mr. Speaker, and all three came back to me playing synths on top of it. And then we all reacted to each other's work, kind of deal. So there are collaboration videos of us, but I guess that's the only real collaboration that we've done. There was also a very old series on my channel where I remixed one of his tracks that eventually came out, but the videos that I showed, like my production stage of that remix, these ones over here. There's 3 videos on this remix idea, I think. Yeah, here's number 2, and then there should be a number 3 somewhere. This search function has been turned into recommendations as well lately, so it's not always showing you everything, I guess. But the remix is out as well, but this ended up being a completely different track than the stuff that I showed in the actual video.
I'm a bad influencer.
Happy belated birthday, hope you had a great time. I did have a very good time. I don't know if I can show any pictures without... Can I show pictures without showing phone numbers? I don't think I can, no. So I'm not going to do that. Because they're on WhatsApp, so there's always like a phone number showing. Maybe during the break I can download some. You're not active in Instagram. Yeah, no, I suck at social media. Even though it's my full-time job, being an influencer, I actually don't like... I'm not really good at being like a proper influencer that is on all platforms and stuff like that. One of the things that I've tried to do for a long time is get my Twitter account back, because my Twitter account was linked to the old phone number that I have back when I was in Budapest, because there I had a different SIM card. So I'm currently unable to actually go into my own Twitter account, which is very annoying. And I've sent like many hundreds of emails, and I don't know if it's just Elon Musk or just because it's like a very big company and all big companies do like that. I assume it's the latter. But every time I get the automated response of reset your password, and in order to reset your password, you need to have access to your phone number, which I no longer have because that SIM card got deactivated like 3 years ago when I moved out of Budapest. So I cannot actually access the Twitter account that has my name on it and has the username that I want and such. And also has some of my old tweets and stuff like that. And in regards to Instagram, my life isn't really Instagrammable. Like most of the time I'm just sitting here, which is not great content for Instagram. Instagram is really meant for people that go outside a lot, which for this kind of job doesn't really happen too often. I'm sure that once I go to more festivals and such, I'll put on more content, and then I can actually, or then I have more things that I can actually photograph and put on there. I should just put the pictures of Sienna on there, but it may look a little bit weird of when I post something and then for maybe half a year again I don't post anything at all. You should put all your short videos there. It would be a great way to gain followers and more. It would if Instagram allowed me to just properly schedule stuff and set everything up. I've tried doing that. I've actually done it in the past. I've experimented also with TikTok. I've experimented with Facebook for shorts. I guess TikTok is okay in terms of posting my shorts, but it doesn't really gain anything. One of the things that you have to realize when it comes to social media is that it's almost, it's like virtually impossible to get somebody to follow you on TikTok and then become interested in YouTube, or the other way around. Like, I can tell you guys that I have a TikTok and you may all follow me, but you're never going to religiously watch me on TikTok because you know of me from YouTube, and my content is so accessible on YouTube that you have no incentive to actually go over to TikTok and watch me there. Because I already post everything that you guys want to see or that you can see onto YouTube. So, and the same is true the other way around. Like, if I amass a very big following onto TikTok, I have a very big following onto TikTok, which then doesn't really translate into a very big following onto YouTube. Because for me, the only benefit that getting a large following would have is that they would watch my long format videos more, which is where I do most of my advertising for products and stuff like that. Generally speaking, in shorts, it's a little bit harder to do. I've tried, but it's really hard to get people excited for your products, because that's for me just where the money is, right? At the end of the day, I need to pay my bills, and the way that I do that is by selling you guys products. I like to be very open about that stuff. I don't make enough money just on the YouTube thing alone, so I sell products to supplement that, and I have other things as well. I have the Patreon, I have other services, the mixing service, the private lessons, all of that stuff. No OnlyFans accounts, no. If you want to see my feed, you can just ask. But yeah, when it comes to social media, it's really hard to get somebody from one platform to the other. It's basically, if you're trying to rely on that, you're basically dead in the water. Like that's never going to actually work. You're never going to get a significant following on one platform and then easily move them over to a different platform. Something really has to happen. Like, one of the things that could happen that would facilitate that, for example, is if the TikTok ban in the United States goes into effect, and then there's a lot of big TikTok content creators on there, they are all going to push their audience and say collectively, like, you guys should follow us TikTokers on YouTube because that is where we're going to be posting from now on. The reason why they're then going to move over is not because the content creator is like telling them from like, hey, follow my stuff on YouTube. It's literally the platform is going to shut down, right? So they have no other choice. That would be a way that you could get followers or a large group of followers from TikTok to another platform. But there's not really any other way. One of the things is, I mean, there's always a possibility, right? Like, let's say that I were to blow up on TikTok and I get 100,000 people there. Maybe 10, 20 people, maybe 30 people would move over to YouTube and actually check out my YouTube content. But is the time investment into that, is that worth it? TikTok itself doesn't really pay anything. Like, people make basically no money on that platform from everything that I've heard. So is the time investment worth it? And the same is true for Instagram. Instagram doesn't pay its creators. So getting a large following on Instagram, the only way that you're going to capitalize on it is by doing sponsored posts. With regards to people moving from one platform to another, look at Ninja and move to Mixer, whole platform died. Yeah, but there's more recent examples of that as well. Kick is the streaming service that essentially has infinite money and can shill out money for any creator that they want. They've tried buying a few creators of Twitch and move them over to the Kick streaming service, and essentially nobody followed. right? The people that were watching those creators on Twitch just moved on to other creators on Twitch. Even a big creator like the biggest one is XQC, who got $100 million to move from Twitch to Kick for a couple of years, and not even exclusively, I think. Even he, in terms of viewership, I think maybe like 10-20% of his viewers or of the numbers that he got on Twitch actually showed up on Kick, which is a terrible deal at the end of the day. Because if you want to compete with Twitch, you would essentially need to buy a majority of their creators. XQC, as big as he is as a streamer, if you compare him to the whole of Twitch, he is basically nothing. Like a small percentage point. Maybe, let's say at maximum, he's 1% of all of the people that are watching Twitch at any given time. If you were to go live on Twitch. That is basically nothing. If you need to spend $100 million to buy out 1% of a platform, and Twitch as a platform as a whole is valued at $2 billion maximum, I guess. Maybe around that. They were essentially bought for $1 billion, but assuming a little bit of growth and stuff like that, they may be worth $2 billion now. At that point, instead of spending all of that money buying individual creators, you just buy the whole platform. Right? That's a much better way of getting people to move, and then you just integrate Twitch with Kick, or the other way around, whatever you want. Because at that point you own both of them, so it doesn't really matter. But I think buying individual creators is not a way to grow it, and the reason for that is the same reason why, for me, spending a lot of time worrying about Instagram or Facebook or TikTok isn't really a great growing strategy, because it's just much better for me to focus on the platform that I actually want people to follow me on, which is YouTube at the end of the day. Because that is where all of my advertising is happening. That is essentially where I make all of my revenue, both like slight revenue directly, but most of it indirectly. And short form content, the way that Instagram works, the way that TikTok works, and the way that, to a certain extent, also Facebook has like its own short form thing as well. But I guess maybe Facebook is a little bit better because I could post my long forms there. I'm not sure the time investment is worth it for those platforms. Especially for the shorts, I know that is not worth it. Like you basically cannot advertise anything properly inside of a short. Like I can mention that I have a pack that I'm using for a particular sound in a short, but that never really gets people excited to get the pack. That's not why people watch short form content. They watch short form content to be entertained for 1 minute, as opposed to actually learning something or looking for new products to buy, which is what long format content essentially tries to fill.
So those are the topics for today. I hope that you enjoyed this one. Let me know if you did by leaving a like, and make sure that you're subscribed. Another way to support the channel is by watching some more of the content. So I'll leave 2 videos up on the screen right now for you to choose from. So just pick one and enjoy, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.